Hi, Analisa Six here with the Lady of Leo shirt and the Sober Curator to bring you the March 2024 horoscope for the zodiac sign of Sagittarius for Sun and Rising placements. I'm a little bit nervous to do this video because I am Sagittarius rising. And so that means everything that I'm about to look at is for me as well as for you. And I'm going to share, I shared this in the Leo one because I'm Leo Sun, Sag rising. So whenever I do horoscopes, the Leo and the Sag horoscopes, I'm always kind of like, oh, what's in store for me too. And the last time I did horoscope videos was in October of 2023. I recorded them all on Halloween, October 31st. And November 1st, my entire life changed. And I went back and I watched the horoscope videos, and it was just a trip. It was so weird watching myself say things to myself about the themes that were coming up in the horoscope for me for the month. And I just, even though I knew those were going to be themes, I didn't think that my entire world was necessarily going to change overnight. So yeah, it's just astrology is a trip. And I have, like, since October, I didn't think it was possible for me to believe in it or lean into it even more than I already did. But yeah, like I just, it never lies. It doesn't. Even when you try to avoid what is coming up, it's just, it's there. So they say that you're not really a true astrologer until you've been practicing astrology for at least a decade. And I understand why, because it's really easy early on in your astrology journey to want to see the best of everything or contort meanings or go, it's not going to be that crazy or it's not going to be that bad. And then it happens and you're like, it was that crazy and that bad. Pandemic is a great example. A lot of astrologers were freaking out about 2020. And, you know, I saw things going on and before my entire life changed, and my gut was telling me something was going to happen, and it did. So that's, that's just how this shit works. So let's go ahead and get into it for us, Sagittarius. Um, so we start out every March in Pisces season, but this Pisces season, we have a lot of energy in Pisces. We have the sun in Pisces, Saturn in Pisces, Mercury in Pisces, and Neptune in Pisces. And where Pisces hits for the Sagittarius horoscope is the area that represents our home and family. So it's the fourth house. So home and family is a huge theme for us right now. This could be around healing, with Saturn here, this could be around healing karmic wounds or karmic, it doesn't have to be wounds, but it could just be stories, ancestral stories. That's really relevant for me. For sure. I feel like I've had a lot of healing around things with my family. If you don't feel like you're healing it, that's okay. There's things that might be bubbling up, and it's important to see them as opportunities for healing, even if it seems challenging or problematic right now. The other theme is things that have to do with our home. So whether this is buying, selling a home, renovating a home, beautifying our home, discussing projects with the home, all of those things are a theme right now. Moving, that could be something that is a theme. Mercury is, going to be in Pisces for a little while longer at the start of March. And so a lot of those discussions or conversations about home and family are highlighted in that way. The other thing that we enter March with is Venus and Mars dancing together throughout Aquarius at the start of the month. And the area that this is hitting in the horoscope is the area that rules communication. The other big shift that we've had into this area of the horoscope is Pluto finally stationed officially in Aquarius at the beginning of the year. And so Pluto's going to be in this area of the horoscope chart for the next 20 years. So communication and our perspective and perceptions and also how we learn is highlighted for the next 20 years. So we're going to be doing a lot of work on how we articulate things and how we share our ideas, collaborate ideas with other people. This is also a house that has a lot to do with writing and the written word. Photography also can be a part of this house. Publishing is in the opposite house in the ninth house, but the process of those other things can live in this area as well. So if those are things that you're feeling drawn to or inclined towards, like that's something that you could be exploring right now. Mars here can bring up some challenging communication and some conflict. So even though Venus wants to have harmonious, conversation or compromise, understanding, Mars is still here kind of pushing to fight and advocate for itself. This energy is very activism energy, very fight for what you believe in, fight for a cause, fight for justice, fight for truth, fight for the community. So that those are some themes that are coming up for the Sagittarius individual. The other thing that we have starting out March is the North Node and Chiron conjunct in the cardinal fire sign of Aries. And, the whole collective is experiencing this energy, but the fire signs are really impacted when there's things going on in one of the fire signs because fire likes fire, it makes a trine. So when we have the North Node and Chiron conjunct in Aries, that is making a trine to Sagittarius. And trines are, they represent fast moving energy, easy flowing energy, and not necessarily good or bad. It's just, it's like a slippery slide of energy. So it's like if we think of energy starting in one place and going to another, it's like a slippery slide with no barriers or blockages. It just goes straight there for better or worse. And the area of the horoscope that we have Chiron in the North Node is the area it's the area that Leo traditionally rules, the fifth house. And it's the area that represents creative self-expression. And so this is actually hitting me hardcore now that I'm in this space with it. So if you've had any kind of wounds around how you express yourself creatively, this is the time to work on healing those wounds with this North Node Chiron conjunction. And then it's making a trine to Sagittarius on the ascendant, which is our, self-expression, our identity, how we're putting ourselves out into the world. So if you've been really thinking about how you put yourself out into the world and you feel like there's a rebrand that needs to happen, or maybe some confidence that needs to be worked on, this is that time to do that. I'm relating a lot to that because in 2018, I recorded an album that I had been working on. I think I started working on it in 2016. And it's hard to say for sure because some of the lyrics and some of the music I had written when I was a teenager, but it wasn't until 2016 that I started putting some of that together into these songs. And I wrote this album and then I recorded it in 2018. And when I finished the album, I was really proud of myself and I was really proud of the process, but it didn't feel good enough and it didn't feel complete all the way. And I had a lot of dreams during the recording process where I was told that I could do it better. And then once it was time for me to put it out and start going down that process, I started getting really bad anxiety about it and it just didn't feel right. Like putting it out did not feel right. And I didn't know why. But I didn't want to put it out. And I felt very much like there was part of me that was blocking it with my own insecurities, but then there was a part of me where it just didn't feel like it was the right time. And I felt like I needed to redo some things or do it better. It was a whole thing. And 5 years later, now my life falls apart and I'm sitting up one night, like crying my eyes out, just super sad. And I had been listening to these songs that I had written and they were taking new meaning for me and they were feeling really poignant for how I was feeling. And I was filled with so much anger and so much sadness. And I just was like, you know what? It's time for me to let this go. It's time for me to release this. It's time for me to get over my anxiety about it and to just put it out there so that I can move on. And, I was also like starting to write new songs. And I was like, but I have this album I haven't put out. Like it was starting to be a whole thing. And of course, this is like the tortured artist thing. Like nobody else cares. Nobody else knows really about this. Like this is my own tortured artist kind of syndrome with my own creativity. But I released it and put it on my website, but I didn't release it, in like a big way. Like, it was just kind of private. And then the next step was me putting it out on streaming platforms. And then the next step was seeing if somebody wanted to do a physical copy, and I just started to get more confident around reclaiming this part of myself because it's been a long time since I've really allowed myself to feel like a musician again. But that was starting to come out. Like as my life was falling apart, it was like I wanted to start writing songs again. And I was like, this is who I am. Like as soon as shit hit the fan, I just wanted to write songs. I had no idea that was still living in there to that extent. And so it was like, wow, this is what I need to do. Like I need to put this out and I need to reclaim this part of myself because this is who I am. Like I feel very much like who I am as a musician, as a songwriter, but it's like I suppressed it and stifled it because I have so much trauma around that part of myself. So this was like a reclamation of self, a reclamation of this album. And, you know, it's not perfect. There's a lot about it that I would do differently and better, but it is what it is. And it was a really positive experience for me writing the album and recording it. It was so positive. It was so empowering, so magical. And I'm so grateful for that experience and for the people that I share that experience with, because it was really, really important part of myself and my life. And now getting to have that album now and those songs that I wrote now is even more empowering. And I didn't even know that that was possible because I had so much kind of judgment towards it. Now I'm really happy that I'm sharing it. I've gotten a lot of friends in my life that have, you know, been really encouraging, and it's a good thing for me to have in my life right now. So that's been my North Node Chiron journey while these transits have been going through as a Sagittarius person, has been me finding that confidence again for self-expression, which has been hard because I've been knocked on my ass a lot. I've been humiliated. I've been humbled a lot, and not just by life or other people, but I've done it to myself in a way that's kind of extreme, that maybe I don't necessarily need to be so hard on myself. I'm constantly knocking myself down. And that's something that it's like the inner critic for me is like, no, this could be better. You know, you could do better. And that voice gets in the way of me just doing stuff sometimes, you know, or just enjoying things too. I'm trying to work on that. So that could be something, you know, I'm sharing my anecdotal story just in case it's something that anybody relates to, but it might be totally different for you. Your confidence journey might be something that's more, you know, personal, maybe not tied up so much in a physical, like, you know, album release or art release, but maybe it has a lot to do with how you relate to yourself and how you put yourself together, you know, those types of things. Mercury is going to be joining this North Node Chiron party in the 5th house on March 9th. And so once Mercury enters this, it's going to actually be sitting here for the remainder of the month and all the way up until May, because we have a Mercury retrograde in Aries starting on April 1st. I'm actually kind of excited looking at this. I've been really nervous about the Mercury retrograde for us fire signs because it's, you know, Mercury changes the element that it stations retrograde in every 2 years. So we're in Mercury retrograde in the fire signs for this year and next year. And because everything in my life fell apart and, you know, around Mercury retrograde in Sagittarius was when it got really bad. I am nervous about it. I'm nervous about Mercury retrograde in Aries and Mercury retrograde in Leo. I'm not excited about it. The one thing that I will say that's positive for a Sagittarius dominance is that it's happening in the area of self-expression and creativity. And this could be a really empowering time for us to fight for that confidence, fight for our ability to express ourselves. All of us have to be careful when Mercury is in Aries because we all run the risk of being overly reactive. And you know, when we're fire people, like we're reactive anyways. And then you add certain placements into the ether and we're just like at 11, you know? And so fire and fire, like it's intense, but really good for creativity, being in this house, you know, in this area of the chart. So this is a really good time to really like put yourself out there artistically and regain that confidence. This is a good reclamation of creative energy for self-expression and confidence. But again, we need to be really mindful about how we're doing it because we could easily get humbled really quickly if we're coming in too hot and too arrogant. So making a mental note to myself too, you know, I'm nervous about it. So yeah, so that starts on not the retrograde, but Mercury entering Aries starts on the 9th. And then on the 10th, we're going to have a new moon at 20 degrees of Pisces. And the area that this hits for Sagittarius is the area of the chart that has to do with everything that I was talking about at the beginning of the of this reading, which is the area that represents home and family. And so new moons are a time for setting intentions. And so this is a really good time for us to set intentions around our home. So if there's goals that we have in the home, this is a good time to set intentions for that. And then if we have goals around our relationship to family members, this is also a really positive time to set intentions for that. It's a really good self-care energy too. Like March 10th is a really good time to be at home doing self-care, which I'm bummed because so the Oscars are happening on March 10th and I live off Hollywood Boulevard now. And I have a bunch of friends coming into town that day that I'm supposed to go out to dinner with. And I really want to go out to dinner. However, this new moon energy mixed with the Oscars, it's going to make leaving my house really challenging. And it's like, ugh, this is hard. The best advice for Sagittarius is to stay home and do self-care. But the thing is, I need to get out because I'm so heartbroken and so sad by a lot of the things going on in my life that being at home too much is actually not good for me. So maybe the adventure of trying to get to downtown LA during the Oscars will lend itself to some hilarity that I appreciate. That's kind of what I'm hoping ends up happening. Shortly after our new moon on the 10th, Venus is going to enter Pisces on the 12th and join that energy, join that home energy. Great time to be beautifying the home. Great time to do things that are aesthetically pleasing in your space, you know, painting a new wall, hanging some new art, those renovation projects, you know, you might enjoy starting. It's also a really good time to connect with family. So if you have family visiting or anything like that, that's really positive. And Venus is going to be here for the rest of March. So she's going to be blessing that area. On March 19th, we're going to have the sun entering Aries. So it's going to be Aries season. Again, fire likes fire. So sun in Aries is going to be really positive for Sagittarius. It's going to bring a lot of energy and vitality for us. And that's going to be hitting that area of the chart that has to do with creativity and self-expression. So I'm excited about that because I think that if you've been feeling stifled at all in your creative self-expression, like this is a really positive time for you again to put yourself out there. And, you know, of course, with a little bit of humility, like you don't want to come in too hot and too arrogant. It's going to be hard not to do that with Aries energy. But, you know, I think it's a positive energy for us. And then shortly after that, Mars is going to join the Pisces party. And this is where things can get a little challenging. We start to experience a little bit more conflict and turbulence wherever Mars is passing through. So Mars passing into Pisces through the family and home house, we could experience some butting of heads with family members or people that we live with. There's also potential for some of those home projects to maybe go into a direction that we weren't really hoping. Like maybe there's some challenges or some things that come up that we weren't expecting that we're frustrated by. And of course, during this time, we enter the Mercury shadow, the Mercury retrograde shadow. So Mars entering Pisces with Mercury entering Mercury retrograde shadow, there's this opportunity for things to get a little bit turbulent again. March 25th, we're going to enter eclipse season. We have the Libra eclipse at 5 degrees of Libra. So the sun is going to be in Aries in that same spot we've been talking about with self-expression and creativity. And then the south node with the moon is going to be in the opposite place that has to do with our community and our connections to friendship circles and group associations. And so whenever we have this intense energy in these two polarities, there's this, how am I relating in an interpersonal way to how I share and express myself? And then how am I relating in a social way to how I share and express myself? Who am I to my community? Who am I in my friend group? What do I want out of my relationships with other people? Am I aligned with people that I want to be aligned with? You know, I just moved out here in February and there's people here that I already know that I'm connecting with and that I, you know, want to go out and do things with and, you know, go do things that I know that I already like, you know, like go see concerts or shows of bands that I know I already like. But there's also so much stuff out here that's new to me that I've never really explored in my life, but I've always had an interest in, you know, like I'm half Mexican and there's a huge Hispanic culture here that was also in the Bay Area that I never quite felt like I experienced or got to really explore because I am so whitewashed. Like I'm such a whitewashed Mexican. I don't really speak Spanish. I'm really ignorant about a lot of Mexican culture and music, but there's this huge Latino Hispanic culture around these really fun DJ nights and dancing, like, uh, dance parties and stuff at these bars. And I've always kind of had FOMO around that stuff because there was a vinyl club in the Bay Area that did a lot of that stuff. And I always kind of felt like I was, having FOMO watching that and, never really knowing anybody in that world. And then moving to LA, and just one of the reasons why I've always wanted to live in California and live in LA is because it's one of the only places that I really felt at home in myself as a Mexican whitewash person, because it's like there's so many of us here. And I felt the most like in my element in these places. And so for me, I can tell that my nodal journey with this eclipse is like wanting to kind of break into maybe some new communities that I've never really felt confident being a part of. Same thing with like the vegan community. Like I've been vegan so long and I have tons of vegan friends, but I'm still not really like involved in a lot of vegan community stuff. And so that's stuff that I've always kind of also had a little bit of like wanting to explore. And there's so much of that out here in LA. There's a huge vegan Mexican culture in LA that I'm so like, I would love to meet people like that. Like I don't have any Mexican vegan friends. So yeah, there's all kinds of stuff like that. So I think for me, like that's the examples of kind of some of those things coming up for me. But for other Sagittarius people, if you're more introverted Sagittarius, it could be kind of like, what does community mean to you? What is your relationship to friendship mean to you? Maybe there's things that you're feeling you are craving or wanting to redefine in that way. Those are big themes that come up during March 25th, with that full moon in Libra, that lunar eclipse. I am offering one-on-one readings again, so astrology and tarot readings. And you can DM me on social media, Lady of Leisure, or send me an email, analisa6@ladyofleisure.com to book and schedule. I can email you a list of the prices. But yeah, I'm excited to be doing those offerings again. So just hit me up if that's something that you would like to book. And you can find me at thesobercurator.com as well. I hope that you Sagittarius have a great month, and I'll see you guys in April.